I'm now joined by Anthony Nelson, the Director of East Asia and Pacific Practice at the Albright Stonebridge Group. That is a global strategic advisory group here in Washington. Anthony, we see a lot of formal meetings and also talks on the sidelines of the ASEAN meeting. What caught your eyes the most about this summit? And also, what are the tangible progress made?
Well, the ASEAN Regional Forum includes both the 10 countries of ASEAN and 17 other dialogue partners. So since ASEAN operates in a consensus manner, meaning every country has to agree to move issues forward, there's always the possibility that contentious items will simply be pushed aside to be dealt with next time. There was some concern whether ASEAN would actually be able to issue a joint foreign minister's statement because of some debate about how much pushback that ASEAN was willing to give to Chinese efforts in land reclamation and militarization in the South China Sea. But yesterday, ASEAN agreed to make a relatively strong statement objecting to some of the land reclamation that's gone on in the South China Sea. They also made a standalone statement about North Korea and pushing back on North Korea's militaristic actions and asking for the demilitarization of the Korean Peninsula.
You're right in pointing out that it's hard to form consensus because we remember 2 years ago when parties walked away from the Congress, no consensus, no declaration was made, which became the headline of Western media. How important is the negotiation, the framework to start negotiation on South China Sea?
Well, the framework begins the process, which is something that we've been waiting for some time. This issue has been an irritant for a long time in regional relations, and at the very least, what the framework does is it sets up a pathway to start actually negotiating. Now, there are a great number of unsolved issues that will still have to be worked out. How much territory specifically any code of conduct covers is one. Whether the code of conduct will be legally binding is another. So those are, as we build up towards the ASEAN summit in November, in which actually the parties will start getting down into the actual brass tacks of negotiation, those are going to be the discussions to watch.
Finally, the role of the United States in ASEAN. We know that the U.S. has been asserting that it has been a Pacific power for centuries, but some ASEAN regional countries insist that the issues should be dealt with by regional countries themselves. How do you look at it? What do you think the U.S. wanted to achieve by sending their top diplomat to ASEAN?
Well, it's very important for the U.S. to maintain a strong presence in ASEAN. ASEAN functions best when it's a forum in which all the great powers are able to participate and work on the sidelines. It functions less well when ASEAN countries feel pressured by one particular party or another, or feel like they have to declare themselves for one camp. So U.S. coming in, participating, having productive discussions with the Chinese foreign minister on the sidelines is a real positive. Now, Secretary Tillerson has spent a lot of time engaging with ASEAN, but a lot of those discussions have been dominated by the North Korea issues so far this year. So I think a lot of ASEAN foreign ministers are hoping, now that ASEAN has made this official statement, now that the region is starting to work together a bit more on the North Korea issue, that the U.S. and ASEAN can get back to emphasizing their bilateral relationship.
Finally, we have about 25-30 minutes. How do you see the role of China in de-escalating tensions on the North Korean issue?
Well, China is obviously the most important party there because they're North Korea's major trading partner. They are the party with the most developed and longest lasting relations. And of course, they have influence in ASEAN, which also has developed relationships with North Korea. So the fact that China is engaging is definitely a positive.
Anthony, thank you for your insight.
Of course.